Hi there, I like card games. My favourite card game is Exploding Kittens. Here is my collection of Exploding Kittens. So this is a card game that I absolutely adore. I remember playing it for the first time, being so excited about the concept, and it was just amazing when I played it for the first time, getting more expansions, learning about new cards, and I'm expanding my collection every time a new edition of the game comes out. And I've even gone through the process of making custom cards for this game, which is something I'm going to be covering in future videos. So one thing I did a long time ago was me sat down with my older sister, we were playing this game, and kind of in this sort of intermission period between games, we took a moment and said, you know, what cards are better than others? What's our favourite cards? What's a higher, more powerful tier card compared to something else? And we made something that was a bit rough and somewhat unofficial. But it was basically decided, yeah, you know, these cards are better than others, and that's something I've thought back to every now and then. So, what I'm going to be doing in this video is basically, I'm going to be recreating that. Let's power rank the cards of Exploding Kittens. So if I recall correctly, the Recipes for Disaster is the latest release for the Exploding Kittens sort of franchise, if you will. I made an order for the Recipes for Disasters and the Exploding Minions variant at the same time. But I believe, again, that the Recipes for Disaster is the newest edition. So as of that release, there are 33 different cards. The Exploding Kitten and Imploding Kitten are two cards we are not going to be looking at in this video, because the whole point of these other cards is to not draw those two, so they are gone. And yeah, with 31 cards to go through, it was quite interesting to decide which one's better than the other, because I've played this game countless amount of times, and I do know situations where each card is more valuable than others. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of a weird process to read this out, but I'm going to be covering each card quite briefly, and hopefully this will not be something that drags on. There's going to be 31 cards to go through, again, like I mentioned earlier, and they are separated in 5 tiers. They are bad, lesser, mid, higher, and top tier. I don't like the idea of S tier, A tier. It's a bit too weird for me. I don't like that. So I'm going to be doing my own personal thingy. And again, going with the names that I've just given for these tiers. So again, 31 cards, 5 different tiers. Oh boy, let's get this over with. We're going to be starting at the very bottom, and we're going to work our way up. And at the very bottom in bad tier is Potluck. The card reads, starting with you and going in the direction of play around the table, each player puts a card on top of the draw pile. There is a card similar to this, but in my experience, where I've only played with a second player, you're basically swapping cards and you're not really getting rid of them, because if you're in a situation where, even if it's early on, even if it's later on when you're close to drawing the Exploding Kittens, where there's only like a dozen cards left in the deck, this doesn't really do anything to save you. It's something that we've hesitated in playing because we know that it doesn't mean anything. Even in the last sort of possible moments where we can play this to save ourselves, it doesn't do anything good. We can't help but see this as a really, really bad card. And the worst thing about this, the bad tier only has this card in it. I wouldn't even put this in lesser tier. It's just bad. It really is. So with the bad tier already out of the way, we're going to move on to the lesser tier, and we're going to kick things off with Garbage Collection, which is the better version of Potluck. Well, we can't exactly have bad cards without good cards, and vice versa. So Garbage Collection reads, every player, including the one who played this card, must choose one card from the hand to shuffle into the draw pile. Now, the reason why this is better than Potluck is because there's no sort of direction of play as to who puts their cards in first. You can wait for everybody else to put their cards into the draw pile, or you can start off by putting your chosen card into the draw pile first, which is interesting, but this doesn't really see good play, because these rankings are based on my personal experience when it comes to playing this game, and we play with the base deck and the 3 expansions. So when there's a really big deck, we've only ever really played this just to get rid of a card from our hand. We've been able to play this really late in the game when there's only a few cards left, when you think, oh, you know, I don't want to draw the Exploding Kittens, so here's a guaranteed way of getting rid of a card that I can probably draw safely. But that was so rare for us. This card is also getting rid of a card from your hand. And in the 2-player experience that I have, it's not going to be doing yourself any favours, because there's only one other person that you're basically affecting with as well. With more players, it can be more effective, but ultimately you're getting rid of a card, and the situations that I'm playing it in, It's not strong. Next we have Swap Top and Bottom, which basically reads as the title says. Swap the top and bottom cards of the draw pile. Now this is another very weak card because there are so many situations where you're basically swapping the top and bottom cards, which are both safe cards. There's always that moment of, what if the top card's an Exploding Kitten, which is something that is very common. And again, it only really ever proves its usefulness when there's only a few cards left in the deck, but even then it kind of gets you into situations where, oh, surprise, turns out the top card was safe and you just swapped with the bottom card, which was an Exploding Kitten, so you're out of here. It's a very weak and simple card. I mean, you know what it does, it's just not good. The next card is called Mark, and it reads as follows. Choose a player and randomly pick one of their cards. They must keep that card facing outward in their hand until it is played or stolen. So that is quite self-explanatory, but it doesn't do anybody any favours either. If anything, you basically know what they're going to play next before they actually make the turn. So there are rare occasions where you find another player's defuse, they're streaking if they're holding one of the barking kittens, but most of the time, especially in the situations where you've got so many cards in the deck, this is a card you play just to get rid of it out of your hand because you're already holding too many cards. And that's not exactly a good thing if you're purposely trying to empty your hand. You want to be able to have cards in your hand to prepare yourself for potentially drawing the Exploding Kitten. This doesn't really help you in any way. Again, you could get the rare opportunity where you get some good information, but the marked card is either going to be played straight away, or the card that you mark doesn't mean anything. It could be another really weak card, and even then, they might not play it for the longest time. It's just not quite as effective as you think it is. The next card is Draw from the Bottom, and this is another card where it does what it says on the tin. At the end of your turn, draw the card at the bottom of the draw pile instead of the one that is on top. Now, the only reason why you would ever want to play this is in a situation where you absolutely know what the next card is going to be. If you don't want it, if you want the card that's underneath that one, which you believe is stronger through something like a See the Future, for example, or even if you know that another card that's going to be coming up next is an Exploding Kitten and you don't want to draw it, this is something that can help. So drawing from the bottom is no real kind of special meaning. It's a very situational card, and even from situations where you're near the end of the game and there's only a few cards left, it even makes it dangerous to play it. So there are a few situations where you can make it work, but you have to specifically kind of set them up for this to have any kind of use. So not strong, but it's, you know, it's not the best thing either though. Reverse is a card that works if you have 3 or more players, especially if you have the Cone of Shame, which is a very fun thing to add to your game. But it's not particularly effective either. This is only ever something you would play to kind of screw over a specific player. So you reverse the order of play and end your turn without drawing a card. So it has the same effect of a skip card, but it just changes the order of play. And again, this only ever works if you have 3 or more players. My personal experience has always been just me and my older sister playing this game, so 2-player games rarely ever have this effect, you know, kind of truly take place. We use it as a skip card, basically, and I'm guessing a lot of people out there who are able to play Exploding Kittens, who have this card in play, kind of use it in the same effect. Changing the turn order doesn't mean too much, ultimately. It's just a thing where you can have a bit of fun. But it's just a skip with 1 extra and maybe even unnecessary step. I'm glad this is a card, of course, I mean, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, it's not strong. And having mentioned skip when it came to talking about the reverse card, skip is up next, and it does, again, just what it says on the tin, you skip your turn without drawing a card. So this is something that you would play if you know what's coming next, or if you want someone else to take a specific card from the top of the draw pile. It's, again, something where you would only really get proper use when it comes to the end of the game, where you are in that last few kind of selection of cards where there's more Exploding Kittens left, and there's just some other cards that can't really save you. This is the sort of thing where you kind of force your opponent into taking the bad cards where you want the good ones. And this is another card in particular where you have so many cards. It's something that you would play even just to empty your hand. So it doesn't have the best use ever, but it's more situational than anything else. The idea of personal attack was something I came up with a long time ago before the 3rd expansion was released, and the idea of taking multiple turns seemed like a bad idea, but there have been a bunch of occasions where taking multiple turns and kind of stocking up on more cards to prepare yourself for the Exploding Kitten was actually quite helpful. So personal attack specifically says take 3 turns in a row. And it is basically a variant of the attack card, which we will talk about later on, of course. So, again, this is only ever really strong in certain situations, specifically at the start of the game. Even if you're going to be playing with just the base game and the 3rd expansion, which is what this card is from, the game starts with a fresh deck full of loads of cards. That's your best opportunity to grab some more cards for your hand. That's hopefully isn't the Exploding Kitten. If you leave this for later, which has definitely happened with me, when it gets down to the last few cards, there's a few Exploding Kittens left. You've got a few other useless cards, and amongst them is a personal attack. You basically play it to concede. So it's a good thing to play if you want to stock up early on, especially if you play a See the Future before then. But it can potentially get very dangerous and very stupid if you don't play this card in the right situation. I'll take that is an interesting card, and reads, put this card in front of another player to steal the next card they draw from the draw pile. So this could be good if you know what's coming next, especially if you've used something like a See or Alter the Future. However, there's always the opportunity to shuffle the draw pile, change what cards are going to be coming next, and I cannot tell you the amount of times where the card that they would have been drawing would be an Exploding Kitten. But because I played the I'll take that, I get the Exploded Kitten. Sometimes I can't even deal with it and I'm out of the game. So, bugger. But it does have its moments where I've been able to play this on another player and take something like a Defuse. Even the Streaking Kitten I remember seeing a few times. I believe it's in the rules where the person who draws the card to give away is allowed to look at the card. I might have to double check the rules because it's been a long time since we've actually had a look at them. And there have been situations where we go, oh my god, you got a Defuse, you got the Streaking, you got something really good. So it does have its moments, but even then that's information available to other players. So it is good, but goddamn does it backfire. Shuffle is a card that is do what it says on the tin, and it's probably the most does what it says on the tin card in the entire collection of Exploding Kittens. Shuffle the draw pile, and that's literally it. So you could have something set up where you've altered the future so you can draw a Defuse card on the way, or something along those lines where you've even been able to set up an Exploding Kitten for another player. In an instant, a shuffle card goes down and that's momentum is gone. And now you're back to panicking to make sure that you don't draw the Exploding Kitten, you don't know what's coming up next. So it's understandably kind of weak in comparison to all the other cards I've been able to rank on this tier list. But it's not a weak card. I mean, all it does is shuffle the draw pile. It's not bad, but it's not good. It doesn't really matter. All you're doing is just shuffling the draw pile. Up next, we have See the Future, and this lets you privately view the top 3 cards of the draw pile. So you know what you're drawing next, what the next player is going to be drawing, and what the player after them is going to be drawing as well. If you are playing with only one other person, so you have a 2-player game, the 1st and 3rd card of that private viewing is what you are going to be drawing. And that is something that you can use quite well to your advantage. So with a bit of in-person psychology, you can, play off a little coy smile. Ooh, I'm going to be drawing this, but it turns out it's secretly an Exploding Kitten, so they change the order of turns. I don't know, they skip their turn, for example, so you draw the good card and they draw the Exploding Kitten. Or you just play it off with the poker face and just go, yeah, there's nothing special there, where you secretly get yourself the Streaking Kitten. So this is very useful, but there are a few different versions of this card and the kind of mechanic this card has. So we'll see those later on. It's not a bad card, so to say, but there are better cards out there that are just, well, better than this. I think it's safe to say that Curse of the Cat Butt is the most hated card in all of Exploding Kittens. I think it said in the rules somewhere, when it came to kind of explaining how this card would work, we don't like the fact that we made this card, but we've made it. Oh dear. It's something along those lines. I can't remember what it said exactly, but I do remember that being somewhere. So choose a player to be blind. They must shuffle and keep their cards face down until they draw a card. So, effectively, you play this card and choose another player. They shuffle their hand and then place it face down so they cannot see their cards. They can still play their cards, but they won't know what the hell they're playing. Hence why the shuffle is there as well. It would be very unfair to know what card is in what position, so they can go, oh, I know that this card is a shuffle, so I'm going to pretend that I don't know that's a shuffle. Oh, look, it's a shuffle card. I'm safe. Oh, dear. So, yeah, it's a very sort of gimmicky card, and one that's understandably hated. I love playing this against my opponents, but I hate it being played on me, because I know what the effect is like. So there are situations where it's played off instantly. They don't play any cards and they just draw a card which allows them to be unblinded and it goes back to normal. But I'm also the sort of person where if I'm forced to be blind, I'm going to go, right, that's it, all in. I'm going to play every single card and just have a bit of fun, because obviously it's a game. There have been loads of times where we, well, not loads of times, but there have been some occasions where we got to the last few cards in the deck and thought, right, I'm blind, let's just go all out. If I'm going out in style. And that is a very fun concept, and I suppose that's what this card is meant to be. It's a fun idea, but goddamn, I hate it when people play it against me. The lesser tier is done. We have come and gone out of there, and we are now entering the mid tier. And we start off with the cat pair cards. I don't know what you want to call them, but basically the taco cats, the beard cats, the zombie cats, all of those ones where you need two to steal a card from your opponent's hand. They are all the same thing, they have the same effect. I'm not going to do them individually, because if I did them on their own, then I'd be ranking them on art style, basically, which is a bit pointless. So the effect is, this is a cat card and is powerless on its own. Play two of them as a pair to steal a random card from another player, which is very exciting. Something I like to do in particular is I have all those pair cards to one side in my hand, and where it gets to a certain point, but again, because of our personal experiences where we have a really big draw pile, our hands get to about 20 cards. I end up playing like 5 of these pair cards in a go, and that's a big portion of my opponent's hands now brought over to me. Sometimes you can get some good stuff, sometimes you can get some bad stuff, and there's a hidden effect where it says so in the rules, but not on this card. You can play 3 matching ones to specify which card you want. The opponent that you're taking a card from cannot lie. So sometimes you can, well, maybe most of the time even, you can get the specified card that you want. But there have been occasions where I want your streaking kitten. Here's 3 taco cats, give me the streaking kitten. I don't have that card. Oh dear, I'm going to blow up soon then, aren't I? So yeah, I love that this is a thing that exists, especially that it's introduced in the base game. But, you know, there are times where you just draw something that's a bit rubbish. Every now and then you might draw something good. It's not so much situational, but it's not good, it's not bad, it's just, you know, they're in the middle. And straight above that is the feral cat, which can be used as any of the cat's pair cards. So you can play 1 taco cat and 1 of these. You can play 1 of the zombie cats and 1 of these, 1 of the watermelon cats and 1 of these, and it has the same effect. It's basically every version of the cat pair cards, and it's a great way of basically getting rid of those pair cards, because you don't want to wait another 20 turns to draw the next taco cat. It's no stronger or weaker than the cat's pair cards, in my opinion. Obviously, it has its own effect. You can still use these for the 3 versions where you get to specify which card you want to take from your opponents. But it does have its own effect, so it is going to be treated as its own separate entry on the tier list. Share the Future was a very interesting card, and one that can be quite fun, but it's also a bit of a bugger to play with. So it says, view and rearrange the top 3 cards of the draw pile, then show the cards to the next player. So not only do you get to see what's coming next, you can arrange and basically set up what's going to be drawn next, but the next player after you also gets to prepare as well. Since you draw your cards at the end of the turn, it can be a real bugger to know that I'm going to screw you over. Oh wait, I have to show you what's coming next. So yeah, that's only really good when you've got 3 or more players, but in the situation where I have basically 1 other player, again like me and my older sister play, I'm basically showing the only other player what's going to be happening. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's boring, sometimes you can arrange it so where you get some slightly stronger cards, but it doesn't really do much at the bottom of the deck where you have, you know, those few cards left and you've got the last exploding kitten. It's still something where you're basically showing them where the exploding kitten is, so they know how to prepare themselves and get out of the situation. It has its perks, and there are strong moments where it can be effective, but it's something where you have to absolutely know that you have full mastery of. So if they go, I'm going to skip my turn, so you're going to draw this, you have something to counter that. So it's good, but it needs a lot of preparation to get done exactly right. The skip card is good for what it is, but the super skip is better. I like the idea of super versions of cards, and I have designed a few super versions of other cards for the custom cards I will be doing in future videos. So the super skip is end your turn without drawing a card. If you're supposed to take multiple turns, end them all, which is really, really cool if you've played attack after attack after attack, where it builds up to like 8 turns, which is something we have done before. Only for the person who's supposed to take all 8 turns, they play a super skip and all of that is gone. It's a bit of a deflating moment, but it's also a moment when you go, oh, you had the super skip, that's so cool. And again, I like the idea of a super version of a card, and I would hope to see some more of them in the future. And one thing that was a bit of a bummer for me, this is something I would only include one of in a deck, but this appeared in the 2nd and 3rd expansion, so technically you have 2, and I suppose it's not a bad thing to have more than one super version, but it doesn't quite make it special anymore, if you know what I mean. The next card is See the Future ×5, so privately view the top 5 cards of the draw pile. The normal See the Future card was quite a bit down below, but seeing those extra 2 cards really does make a difference. Doesn't matter how big the size of the draw pile is, seeing 2 more cards when you go to See the Future, it's so much more information, so you know what's coming next. That's extra preparation for 2 more potentially really good cards. Again, sometimes I may not have anything good there, but it's just more information. Being able to see what's coming next from the draw deck is so strong. See the Future is good, but seeing more of the future is even better. The next card on this tier list is Attack, and it says end your turn without drawing a card, but force the next player to take 2 turns, i.e. draw 2 cards. Now this is quite strong and a bit evil in some scenarios. If you know that an Exploding Kitten is next, you play the attack card, and not only does that end your turn, but it may potentially force the next player into drawing it, even if they don't have a way of defusing it, which again is really evil. But that's so much fun. So with the super skip earlier, there is a thing where you can stack attack cards upon each other. So playing one attack card that ends your turn, the next player has to take 2 turns. If they play an attack card on top of that, which they can do, it's in the rules, that then becomes 3 turns. They've ended one of them, but it's +2. So attack is basically -1 +2 when it comes to the amount of turns the next player has to take. And if you add the personal attack, that's an extra 3 being added on top, and oh my god, it's just ridiculous. So there have been times where it's stacked up really high, and it gets super evil. Early on, it's not too much of a problem, because in a more full and bigger deck, you can basically take all of those turns and get your hand really full with some potentially really useful cards. But at the end of the game, you're basically done for. A targeted attack is like a normal attack, but instead of the next player taking all of those turns, you get to choose a player to take all of those turns. So let's say you have a 4-player kind of game going on. You could skip the player that's coming after you and go straight to the player beyond him. So that player that's supposed to go next doesn't get touched for a while, and play continues from the person who's supposed to take all of those turns. It's very similar to the attack concept, but again, I think this is just a bit stronger because you get to choose specifically who you want to take all of those turns. You could even choose the person right before you, so after they take all those turns, you get the next good card, and again, some situations call for that, and it could be very good. This next card was introduced with Exploding Minions, and it is Clone. Whenever you play this card, it becomes whatever the card is beneath it. Translated, it's whatever card was last played and is shown on the top of the discard pile. The best scenario for this is you draw an Exploding Kitten. You have a Defuse. You play the Defuse, that's on the top of the discard pile. You decide to be a bastard and you put the Exploding Kitten on top of the draw pile. The next player is forced to draw the Exploding Kitten, but doesn't have a Defuse. But they do have a Clone. So they can use the clone in place of defuse because the previously played card was your defuse. So that is a wonderful scenario where you can put this card to strong effect. I, for one, have not experienced that happen yet. But the clone card basically being, it's any other card. I think every other card works with the clone besides the barking kitten and the Tower of Power, or even the streaking kitten. I think those three in particular, given their specific mechanics, are the only three that don't work with the clone effect that this card has. But my god, it's strong. There are, again, probably those few examples kind of exempt from being even higher, but there are so many other kind of weaker and dud cards. It's probably the most situational card that Exploding Kittens has ever made. The one thing I don't like about it is not the fact that you can't use it with barking or streaking or the Tower of Power, is the artwork on the back of the card. So if you have every other card with the standard red Exploding Kittens card back, and then you see this appear next, it has the Exploding Minions card art, so you know that you're going to be drawing a safe card, which is the clone card, but everybody else will know as well, which is a bit of information that you probably don't want other people to know. But then again, it's a good card. The final card for the mid-tier is FAVOUR, and I believe this is much stronger than the capped pair cards because you only need to play one of these instead of two, and your opponent is choosing the card to give to you. So specifically, it reads, one player must give you a card of their choice. If you're playing with 3 or more players, you play this, you choose another player, and they have to give a card from their hand to you so you can add to your hand. There have been situations where I've been able to take defuses because they don't have any other choice. I want to keep my altar because I know that there's a bunch of Exploding Kittens coming up. We're in the last few cards of the deck. I don't want to give away my barking kitten. I haven't played the Tower of Power yet. God forbid I don't want you taking the streaking kitten. So you'll have to take this. I'll have to give you this one. What if they give me a Taco Cat? Oh, I can now steal a card from you. Yes, excellent. I now have your defuse. It's something that can lead into a cascade of awesomeness for you, but a disaster for your opponents. It's not often where that situation can really take place, but FAVOUR really is a good card. We are now entering the higher tier, and we kick things off with Berry. It reads as follows. End your turn by secretly putting the next card you draw back into the draw pile as if you have defused it. My goodness, this is strong. It's basically a defuse, but it's like a backup defuse, so it's not quite up there, but it's still so good. There have been life-saving, well, maybe not life-saving, but game-saving situations where I'm praying to draw a defuse, but I get a berry and it's a backup. Yes, okay, I think an Exploding Kitten's coming next. I'll play this. Oh, thank goodness it was an Exploding Kitten. I've got the berry. I'm saved. Yes. So again, it is still a strong card. There have been many, many situations where it's been wasted, where I think the next card is an Exploding Kitten. Oh, it's not, but that's okay. But at least I knew that I was safe. It's such a good, reassuring moment knowing that you have this as a backup. It's not as strong as Defuse, but it may as well be one because it has that confidence to let you know, okay, I can draw cards just a little bit more safer knowing I have this as a backup. It's good. The next card is CATOMIC Bomb, and this can be an absolute bastard, so long as you play it in the right moment. So it reads as follows. Remove the Exploding Kittens from the deck, then shuffle the deck. Put all those Exploding Kittens back into the draw pile at the top, face down, and then you end your turn without drawing a card. So once you play this, you do the motions, and then you sit back with your smug face, hoping that your opponent basically gets eliminated because they can't deal with the Exploding Kitten that's right on top. This is a card you can play at any time, of course, and if you do play it at the beginning, you basically play it for like boredom, or if you just don't want the card in your hand, which is something you don't want to do, but it is at its absolute strongest if you just keep a hold of it and wait towards the end. There are times where games get down to the last few cards, and this can seal the fate of your opponents if you do it right. And believe me, it's hard to get wrong. The next three cards I'm going to be talking about are quite similar to each other, but the orientation of them will be hopefully explained well enough for it to make sense. So this next card is Alter the Future. Privately view and rearrange the top three cards of the draw pile. Not only do you know what is coming next, you get to choose what you want to draw next. Isn't that lovely? So you can set things up where your opponent draws the exploding kitten where it otherwise would have been drawn by you. It's something where you can go, well, they're all quite weak cards, but I'd rather have this one. So you basically get to rearrange them and make things most optimal for you. If you have some of the pair cats, for example, that's a good thing to use. If you know that one of the barking kittens is coming up next, oh, but my opponent would have drawn that, let me just rearrange it so I can draw that and I have that in my favour. Alter the Future is naturally just a very strong card. Altering the future on your turn is strong. Altering the future whenever you want is even stronger. It says the same thing as the original Alter the Future card, but at the end it says you can play it at any time. Oh, yes. So you go through the situation where you know your opponent's going to draw something safe, but you can slap this down and go, right, I'm going to rearrange it so I can make sure that you draw the card that you don't want. I'm going to draw the card that I do want. And we go from there. So, there we go. Deal with it. It is something that we have rarely been able to pull off personally in our own games. But the fact that you can play this at any time, and we have been able to do this in some games, it's such a bit of a bastard feeling, I suppose, where you go, oh, but I wanted that card, but it's so much fun that you get to be able to do it in the first place. It's wonderful. It's annoyingly wonderful. But do you know what is better than altering 3 cards? Altering 5. So an Alter the Future ×5 was introduced in the second expansion. Privately view and rearrange the top 5 cards of the draw pile. Similar to what we saw with the See the Future ×5, those 2 extra cards make such a difference. And the fact that you get to rearrange them to how you personally want them, it's so strong, it really is. There are situations where you need to have absolute mastery, where if your opponent goes, I'm going to skip my turn in case you screw me over, or if you don't want that card, I actually want that card. It's a bit of a back and forth, but it's something like this which sets up a bit of mastery because you know what's coming next, you know what you wanted to draw next. It's just good. It's so good. I'm going to be rounding off the higher tier with Nope. I very nearly put this in top tier, but knowing what the other cards are in top tier, I felt like it wasn't quite worthy of it, which is a bit of a daft thing to say, but my goodness, this is the absolute best card for the higher tier. So Nope means stop the action of another player, and you can play this at any time. There are a few cards that cannot be noped, but oh, this is so much fun to play. Somebody's trying to set up this super weird combo, but it means so many cards get played, so many cards get drawn, and it ultimately results in an exploding kitten, but you can shut that down with one of these nopes. You can nope a nope. I want there to be a super version of this card where a super nope cannot be noped. It's so evil, but it's brilliant evil. It's fun evil. And seeing all 5 nopes go down on top of each other, which is something we've done before in the past. I think the base game comes with 5 nopes. So I'm going to Alter the Future. Nope. Nope. Yes, I do. Nope. Nope. Yes, I do. Nope. It's fun. It's just absolute fun. This is a really cool card, and again, a super version of this can absolutely be made. We have 4 cards left, and we are about to enter the top tier. So when it came to arranging these cards, I did so as carefully as possible, thinking back to all the games and experiences we've had when it came to using these cards. It was something I had to make sure. I know that these 4 cards in particular are the best in the collection of Exploding Kittens, but the orientation of them in terms of the power scaling, I had to make sure that these were done exactly right. I believe that I've been able to achieve this. If you disagree, then make sure you let me know in the comment section. Let me know what you think, what the order for these next cards should be. But we're going to start off with the Barking Kitten. This is really fun, and I love the concept of it. So there are 2 of these, and it reads as follows. If someone has a Barking Kitten, they give you half of their cards. Choose and return the same number of cards, otherwise keep this in front of you. So to explain this a little bit further, again, like I said, there are 2 Barking Kittens in a deck. You don't ever have more. You probably could play with more, but it just gets a bit weird if there's 3 players with 1 Barking Kitten each in their hands. So again, limit it to only having 2 of these in a deck for any given time. So you play a barking kitten, and you can then ask if another player has one in their hand. If they say yes, that player must give over half of the cards in their hand. They get to choose which cards go over. They then hand it to you. You get to choose which ones you want to keep, which ones you want to get rid of. And let's say 6 cards came to you. You choose and you swap around. You must give 6 cards back. And that's the situation that takes place. If another player draws the second barking kitten, they can basically play that's on you, and you're the person who has to hand over the cards. If you draw both barking kittens, you can play both of them at the same time and choose another player to take half the cards from. It is a very fun concept. And whilst they're giving away some of the cards they think, yeah, I could probably live without this, they could be cards that you go, oh, actually, I want that. And all of a sudden, the game changes a lot for you, because where you thought to yourself, I don't have a chance, all of a sudden, I might have a chance. Someone like a skip, I might get the taco cats, I need to be able to play 2 of them. I could get a note which could save me in the future. It's a brilliant card to play. And this is something that I truly believe was a game changer for how you could go ahead and play the Exploding Kittens game, because it's just something that's so different and fun and awesome. I love it. Taking the bronze medal is the Tower of Power, and I probably might as well go ahead and say that I think this is my favourite card ever introduced with Exploding Kittens. So it reads as follows: anytime someone steals from you, they blindly draw from the top of the tower. When you like, take a card from the tower and shuffle the rest into the draw pile. So to once again explain the way this actually works when you play. So at the start of a game, when you're shuffling the deck together and you have all the hands dished out, you then create what's called a stash with 8 separate cards from the draw pile. Then afterwards you you shuffle the Tower of Power along with the Exploding Kittens into the draw pile. So when you play the Tower of Power, you're basically safe. So whenever someone plays 2 Catamelons, 2 Beard Cats to steal from your hand, they instead get to steal from the stash, which isn't exactly a good thing, but you're protected. Any special and precious cards in your hand are safe. Now, whenever you want, you could play this, and on the same instant you play the card, you can go to that stash of up to 8 cards, look through all of them, choose one of the cards you want to keep. There have been times where the Streaking Kitten has been there. There have been times where the Defuse has been found in there. We take them, and then you shuffle the remaining cards you don't want into the draw pile. And that means shuffling the draw pile as well. That is wonderful stuff. It's such an interesting idea, and I want to try and come up with a concept like this in the future for like some more custom cards. It's so cool. It's a brand new element to Exploding Kittens that didn't exist before this was introduced. And it works so well. It really does work really, really well. I absolutely love it. The only thing we don't do with this, we don't wear the Tower of Power hat on our heads, because that also means you have to wear the stash on your head, which is really weird. So we just keep it all on the table. So yeah, there is that as well. Taking the silver medal is the Streaking Kitten. This is a very powerful card, and one card that we try to go for in particular when it comes to playing the game. So it reads as follows: keep this card a secret in your hand. As long as it's in your hand, you may draw and secretly hold 1 Exploding Kitten without blowing up. So you don't need to worry about defusing it. So long as you have the Streaking Kitten, you're safe. And that is unbelievably powerful. If you have a good poker face and you have the Streaking Kitten, once you draw an Exploding Kitten, you can add that to your hand and just play off as if you got something else. It is brilliant. It's one of the go-to cards that we kind of go for when it comes to our games. Whenever we play the pair cats in particular, that is, we say, do you have the Streaking Kitten? Come on, I want to see if I can try and get your Streaking Kitten, because it's such a strong card. There's only ever 1 of these in the deck. That's the key thing. You can play this with more than 1 if you wanted to, but that makes it less special. It kind of ruins it a little bit. Just playing a game where there's only 1 Streaking Kitten in the deck makes it so much more thrilling. There's more diffuses in the deck, that's fine. I want the streaking kitten, because if I get to take it from you and you were holding an exploding kitten, that means you now have to deal with it. Oh, you didn't have a diffuse? Well, that means you're out. And the bastardry makes it so much more fun. The streaking kitten is an amazing card, and I'm actually really happy that it exists because it makes things so much more intense, but in a good way. And number 1, the gold medal goes to Diffuse. Would it really be anything else to go at the very top? Diffuse is the one card you get to start with, and it keeps you safe from the exploding kitten. There are other things you can do to kind of avoid it. Obviously, the rest of the deck is to make sure that you don't draw it, but this is your absolute safe spot. You can draw one of these after not having a diffuse for the longest time, and you can breathe a sigh of relief. You go, oh, thank goodness. So if I draw an exploding kitten later on, it's not going to matter too much because I now have a diffuse. Yes, it's the one card everybody wants to have in their hand. And if you're not asking for this card when you're stealing from your opponents, then it better be the streaking kitten. If it's not any of those two, then you are an idiot. But seriously, the diffuse is very obviously the best card in the game. There's nothing else that can really beat it. Like Berry, I would like to see more variants of the diffuse card going forward, but the standard default diffuse card is just amazing. Simply the best card in the game. So there we go. That is every single card in the Exploding Kittens catalogue documented and placed on my ranking tier list. Whatever you want to call them. Ranking list? Tier list? Well, you get the idea. We talked about each card and we had a lot of fun actually talking about each card and just kind of going, oh, so that's why this one's stronger or weaker than this one. I stand by the list that I made, and I'm hoping to see more expansions in the future because Exploding Kittens is such a good game. I love it so much. So the next few videos that will be coming out will be on some custom cards. The best thing about that, when I made the custom cards a long time ago, I think it was before the second expansion came out, and it was only recently where I discovered 2 of the custom cards that I made with the concepts of them. They became real cards. So that's really cool and exciting knowing that, okay, so even though I'm thinking of it as my own thing, there is also people at the Exploding Kittens team who believe that that can actually turn into a concept used in the official game. So in the perfect world, when I go ahead and make those videos, I'm going to talk about the custom cards. I'm going to separate them into 3 separate videos because there is a lot to cover. But even then, I'm hoping that maybe somebody from the Exploding Kittens team could see these cards. I don't care for credit. I don't care for, you know, an expansion being based around me. I just love this game so much. I want more cards. I want more Exploding Kittens because it's so damn fun. And, yeah, hopefully we get to see some more amazing cards in the future. With more cards being introduced, I will happily update my tier list here and rank future cards compared to other ones that we have already been given. So, yeah, that was a lot of fun. It's time to now end the video and begin the editing process. Oh dear, this might actually take a while. So, thank you all ever so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I will see you all in the next episode. Bye-bye.